Morning. Okay, so today I'm going over U.S. involvement in World War One. Yesterday, in our video lecture, I discussed the Russian Revolution and how it impacted the United States. Well, the Russians dropped out, which means Great Britain is all by themselves fighting Germany, right? So they need help. They need manpower because Russia wasn't bringing much to the table, but they were bringing manpower. So the United States, at this time, they've stayed out of war. President Woodrow Wilson, in his reelection campaign in 1916, uh, the the selling point was he kept us out of war. Well, somewhere along the way, Great Britain intercepts a note, a telegram called the Zimmerman telegram from the Germans, and it was headed for Mexico, right? And in the telegram, in the offer, or it was an offer, a proposal from Germany to Mexico saying, hey, if you invade the United States, we, the Germans, will help you get the land back that the Americans took from you in in the 1800s. And right around 1845, the United States acquired, or annexed is the word, the United States acquired California, Arizona, Texas, I believe New Mexico, or Nevada, one or two, from Mexico, right? Well, Mexicans obviously would want that land back, and Germany was willing to help them do it, to help them get it back if they invaded the United States. So um, that's maybe reason number one that the United States gets involved in World War One. They felt like they were being threatened, but Great Britain intercepted intercepted that telegram and went and ran to the United States. President Wilson said, "Look what we found! Look what we found! It says all this." So I need you to think about maybe a time where you might have manipulated a situation to benefit you. Maybe if there was a time that uh, you were able to take a text message and, or maybe even a letter, and spin it around and say, "Hey, look what I have." You know, this person's talking some bad stuff about you. Okay, I know what happens. I've been teaching for a long time. Okay, so that's reason number one. The United States gets involved in World War One. Reason number two, the Lusitania. All right, it's a big old cargo ship, similar to Titanic, um, and in 1916, I think it was 1917, the Lusitania is torpedoed by the Germans. Um, So, in the North Atlantic, Germany had in 1914 declared unrestricted submarine warfare in the Atlantic Ocean, saying any ships coming across that Germany believed were there to come in to help Great Britain, they would be torpedoed. And that's what happened to the Lusitania. A lot of Americans died on that ship, I think right around 1300 maybe. Um, so, uh, the question becomes, do we go to war over 1,300 Americans dying? So, anyway, big debate. So, President Wilson, well, now that he's been reelected, he can pretty much do whatever he wants. Guess what? We're going to war. And um, we go to the trenches in France to fight the Germans and help Great Britain. All right, so taking a look at this packet for today, we're only doing the ones highlighted in yellow. That should be what I'm looking right now at my screen: 2, 3, 5, and 6, 8, 12, 15, 16, 17, and 19 and 21. All right, so maybe about 14 questions, somewhere around there. So the Lusitania, cargo ship that gets torpedoed by the Germans, and maybe reason number two or one of the two reasons the United States gets into World War One. That would probably be your best answer for that question. How many Americans died on the Lusitania? That one's worth looking up. I don't have the numbers in front of me. Maybe somewhere around 1,300, or maybe I'm getting that mixed up as well. I haven't checked out the facts on that one. Yes, facts are important to check in this day and time. All right, who was the American president during World War One? Woodrow Wilson. Kept us out of war. There you go. There's number 6. Kept us out of war. President Wilson. Also a pretty big racist as well. Remember that. And he was a Democrat. How is that possible? All right. What is a telegram? It's like an old school letter that got sent in the mail, typed up, and it would get sent really, really fast. Skipping ahead, number 12. What's a treaty? A treaty is a truce. Maybe if there's ever been a time where you were fighting with a friend or a sibling or a family member and you all decided that it was time for a truce or maybe a treaty. Here are the terms of the treaty. Here's how we'll stay at peace. Um, and the Treaty of Versailles was the treaty that ended World War One and punished Germany so severely. More on that later. All right, so Wilson has a plan to create peace after World War One. World War One, as you may have seen, we may have seen in Wonder Woman, was called the War to End All Wars, right? And that's what the that's how this war was being sold to the people. This is going to be the war to end all wars. There won't be any more wars after this. Um, that sounds about as that sounds about as trustworthy as you and your siblings saying, "We won't fight anymore. I promise, Mom and Dad. Can we get this? Can we get this puppy? Can we get this new game console? We won't fight anymore. I promise. We won't fight over it." Right. How long did that last? So, President Wilson creates peace after World War One, and it's with the 14-point plan. Wilson has 14 points that that we need in order to keep the peace in the world. Now, 14 is a pretty big number for anything, and reality is, if you need 14 things to go right, they're probably not going to go right. Am I right? Who pays reparations if there's a car accident? The word reparations is key in this situation, okay? One of my favorite shows of all time, it's probably too old for you guys, is Seinfeld. Maybe you catch the reruns on cable every now and then. There's an episode where um, Jerry starts a relationship with George's girlfriend, right? Or ex-girlfriend, I gotta go back and look. I gotta go back. That's one show I need to binge watch during this whole process, and I haven't been able to do it yet. And George is very, very upset, and he keeps yelling throughout the show, "Reparations!" Reparations are basically you're paying for damages. So, who pays reparations if there's a car accident? Think of it this way. I know I've used this analogy before in class. If you're driving down New Cut Road and you just got your license, but you have to answer that text message, and you answer the text message, and then you look up and you've got somebody's bumper right in front of you, slam on the brakes, you rear end them, they rear end the car in front of them. Who's paying for all those cars to get fixed? You are. Uncle Sam wants you to pay reparations. So, um, so those reparations are the damages. If there's a car accident, the person that caused the car accident is paying the reparations. And the war to end all wars, World War One, was no different. Um, and Germany had to pay all those reparations, all the damages for everything for World War One. This was going to do this is going to do some serious damage to their economy. What does it mean for a government to reduce their military? Well, what's it sound like, guys? Take money away from it, cut funding for it, shut down the tanks, put some of the guns away. Anytime you reduce your military, you're basically cutting the funding for it. And that's another thing that happened to Germany. Germany's industry was in very large part powered by their military, or vice versa. It's kind of a chicken or the egg scenario. Um, Germany was forced to reduce their military, which hurt their economy. And when you add in the reparations that the taxpayers had to pay, that's what's crappy about war. This is why war is terrible. The people that decide, hey, we're going to war, guess what? They're taken care of. They're not going to have to pay any reparations. The German leaders didn't have to pay any reparations. You know who had to pay the reparations? Average, everyday people. People like you and me. You know? And in the work we're doing next week on Great Depression, there's going to be a cartoon you'll look at, and you'll see that being illustrated. That's the crappy thing about war. That's why I don't want to go to war now. I don't want to live in a world where I'm having to pay reparations for a war, and Donald Trump does not. I don't care who the president is. I don't care if it's Barack Obama. No, we're having to pay the reparations. We're having to pay for the war in Iraq over the last, since y'all have been born, and my grandchildren will probably be paying debts on that. I'm not okay with that. We didn't decide. They didn't decide that we needed to go find weapons of mass destruction. I know I'm going off on a rant right now. I'm gonna get out of that rabbit hole, but Bottom line is, that's why war stinks, right? And Germany after World War One is example A as to why war is so unfair for the people of these countries. And if I feel bad about, there's a lot of people who feel bad for throughout history, but Germany, obviously the bad guy in World War One and World War Two. Now you got to remember, the German citizens didn't make these decisions. Um, did they follow along and support their leaders? Well, of course they did. I mean, most people do anyway. But that wasn't. We can't make the mistake of misrepresenting the German people and thinking they were all the bad guys. There were a lot of people who got screwed over by the reparations of World War One and by the Treaty of Versailles. A lot of German citizens that they didn't decide to go to war, but now they have to pay the bill. Not fair. Not fair. Okay, let's move on. I'm hopping out of that rabbit hole now. All right, the goal of the Treaty of Versailles is to end World War One and punish Germany. Now, Germany's punishment is probably not fair. How many? You think about this. How many of you all like a punishment where you get a say in it, right? How many times y'all ever been called down to the office, or you got home and your mom said you're grounded? You get called down to the office and Mr. Johnstone hands you, or Mr. Burden, whoever, and tells you you're going to ISAP for the day. You don't even get a chance to tell your side of the story. I'm not gonna say whether or not that's really fair or not. Depends on what the punishment, or what the crime is, right? But the Germans did not, and they were told basically, "Hey, Great Britain and France are going to take some of your land," which is exactly what Germany was doing in the first place to get started all this. So you got to wonder, are Great Britain and France, just as guilty as Germany now? Do they look just as bad as Germany? And Germany's having their military reduced, which means a lot of their factories are shutting down, which means which means their economy's taking a huge hit. And oh, by the way, the German taxpayers have to pay the reparations. So the goal, when I say the goal of World War One is to end the war, or the goal of the Treaty of Versailles is to end World War One and punish Germany, well, they punish Germany, and that's going to have a very bad global effect here in the future at that time. All right, skipping ahead, number 21. Woodrow Wilson wanted to make sure World War One was the war that, said it already, ended all wars. The war to end all wars. We're not going to fight anymore. How many times have you heard that come out of your mouth or your siblings' mouths? Okay, that's basically how. That's basically how flimsy the words coming out of politicians' mouths after World War One. And I think that's it. So, all right, I'm going to post this to our Google Classroom page. I'm going to send it in the Google Hangout chat. It's going to go in your parents' email. I highly encourage you to watch this as you're as you're doing this. A couple things about Google Classroom: do not jump ahead to next week's work. I'm not finished with it yet. All right. Second, we've got a test tomorrow. I'm gonna submit it on Google Classroom, probably actually tonight, in case anybody needs a head start. It's gonna be 5 questions, 1 open response. So be ready for that. It shouldn't take you, if you handled your business this week, it shouldn't take you that long to do it at all. Okay. Let's see what else. We'll be doing our Google Hangout chats at the normal times today, so be ready for that. All right. And I'm going to leave a lasting image on this that's better than the one yesterday that made me look like I was holding up the middle finger. So 2 thumbs up, and I'll see you guys later.